Addiction and denial are good friends, because anytime we're doing something that involves a fixation of something, something that we feel attached to, that we know is not good for us, and that we make excuses for, we're operating under the guise of denial, where we don't want to look at ourselves. We don't want to look at our behavior and examine it. So instead, we dress it up in different ways to make it okay. When it comes to addictions and raising consciousness, the addiction gets in the way. It's a blockage to raising consciousness. When we face those addictions and we release them from our behavior, we spiral up. That fixation energy and that distortion then is freed from our energy field, and we spiral up to a new level of awareness where we no longer need or want that thing to make us feel a certain way. So whether it's caffeine, cigarettes, cannabis, or other drugs, these are things that distort our energy field, and it's very easy to become addicted. It's very easy to become addicted, and it's very easy to make excuses for the ways that we become addicted, and to overlook or deny the real impact of things on our energy. Or maybe once in a while we think about it, but then we decide not to look at it again. Or we dress it up in different ways and we reframe it. We call it something else. And so on a social level, all of these things are part of social behavior and things that we share together. And how interesting it is that all of these addictive substances, that we get together with other people to share them. It's almost like a shared denial, where the way that we're feeling as our natural self somehow isn't enough. And that's very telling on its own in terms of using addiction, all of these that I've mentioned, as an escape. If you're not feeling good about yourself, doing emotional work can help you reconnect with the state of self-acceptance and joy, instead of using something else to cover up how we don't feel good about ourselves. Because then it just makes the problems worse. We have another problem with the addiction if we're using addiction to somehow escape from how we don't like the way that we feel. So one practice that you might be interested in, if you're considering letting go of addictions in service to raising consciousness, would be to start to examine yourself when you want the thing that you want. So whatever it happens to be, whether it's the caffeine or the cigarettes, the cannabis or the alcohol or the drugs, to allow yourself to sit for a couple of hours when that craving comes on. And you think, okay, now would be a good time to have that thing. To actually sit down and be with your energy in a quiet space, to observe what happens to yourself at this time. Because the beginning of change always comes through observing ourselves and self-awareness, where we see things we didn't see before that inspire us or give us new information or insight into why we do the things that we do. So to examine it, if you're a smoker and you're ready to have a cigarette, can you, at that moment that you want to have one, delay it for a couple of hours and just sit and be with that feeling and observe what happens, what you think about, what happens to your energy. Same thing with caffeine, highly addictive. Same thing with cannabis or alcohol or any kind of drug that you might be taking for recreational use. Examine how you feel without it and observe yourself. Examine your thoughts. Examine how that feels in your body. This would be really helpful to write down. And look at the pull that that thing has over you. Any kind of addiction is a fixation, and a fixation is a distortion. It's a distortion in our energy field. When we free ourselves of that distortion and that need or dependency, our energy spirals up and we expand. We become free of it. Our energy is free. Our consciousness is free. We are in a state of wholeness without it. Then you could start to observe yourself as you engage with the thing that you want to have while you're having it. So start to observe the shift from going from not having it to then having it and what happens, and observe yourself through this act. And if it has to do with alcohol or cannabis or a drug, then watch the point where your normal present moment awareness waking state starts to move into the field of distortion of whatever it is that you're taking on. So this pertains to things that we're constantly reaching for, to change the way that we're feeling. And ask yourself why the way that you're feeling isn't good enough the way it is. Is it because of an emotional issue? Is it because you don't like to be with yourself as you are? Have you made excuses for these different substances that you may be engaging with to dress them up in different ways so that you don't have to see them as addictions, or you don't have to see them in a harmful light? Because this is what denial is. Addiction and denial are good friends. Denial keeps addictions going. So this is not, I'm not bringing this up from a moral standpoint. I'm bringing it up from an energetic standpoint. These are harmful substances that affect the brain, and they distort the brain. And over time, then the brain ceases to function in its normal state. And this affects the expansion of energy. When we bring smoke into the body, we're bringing smoke directly into the bloodstream. This is toxic. This affects the immune system. It makes the blood acidic. So if this is something that you're doing every day, bringing toxicity into your body, this is poison. And the body has to deal with it. So these various things that we ingest and take in affect the brain and affect our natural functioning. It's bringing poison into the body over and over again. And so freeing yourself from these things allows your body to return to its natural state. And if you are using substances to avoid yourself because you feel in pain, then doing emotional work can help you to rebalance yourself, to be free, to feel expansive within your energy, so that being alive and awake and in the present moment is not only enough, it becomes everything, where you really connect with expansive consciousness from a place where your body and mind are supporting you, where they're not having to deal with toxicity and heaviness. So these are things that we just get caught up in. That's the nature of addiction. It's easy to get addicted to things where we can't stop. And then we feel that that thing becomes part of us. That dependency and attachment become part of how we start to feel in life in ways that we start aligning with that thing as bringing something good to our lives, where it's just actually just the addiction fulfilling itself. But we dress it up as having offered us something by engaging with it. So there's all sorts of ways we trick ourselves. And this is the magic of denial in the mind, to not want to look at the things that are causing harm. And that feeling of relief when we have the addiction, if that's giving you a good feeling, what is it about yourself in your raw natural state that isn't working for you? And if it is emotional, you can shift those things. You can shift your pain or lack of self-acceptance. So again, these are just different ways of looking at it. So to take time to examine yourself for a few hours without the thing, and writing those things down, write your perceptions down, write what you're feeling in your body and where your mind goes as you're seeking that thing. And then as well as you start to engage with the thing, what happens to your energy? What are your perceptions? And if you're engaging in something that takes your awareness away, watch that too. Watch that too and observe that about yourself, that you're actually engaging in something that's taking your awareness of yourself away, and you're willingly doing it. Why are you doing that? And write down all the range of excuses as well. Like, just write everything down so you can see it on paper. Because the more you see, the more you observe from a place of honesty, that one little piece that can twig you into a shift. It might be that simple, where you realize the futility of something, or recognize something as an escape, or recognize that you're not seeing yourself in a true light, or have made excuses, or dressed something up to make it look and feel better than it actually is. So these are just things that we do on the journey of raising consciousness. Having the courage to look at those things that we know are not good, that we know are fixations. So a fixation is a distortion. And we want to free ourselves from those things in order to be free. Real freedom, non-attachment. We don't need anything.